So she's just feeling very, very discouraged about looking at the holiday season because it's not the same as it used to be. And a lot of people struggle with that. Christmas isn't the same as it was before. And so what advice do you give to people in that situation? Welcome to Stories of Hope in Hard Times, the show that explores how people endure and even thrive in difficult times, all with God's help. I'm your host, Tamara K. Anderson. Join me on a journey to find inspiring stories of hope and wisdom learned in life's hardest moments. On today's episode, I'm going to take a little bit of a different take on what I normally do because we are approaching the holiday season, and a lot of times there are people who struggle during the holiday season. So I'd like to address some of those issues, and I'd also like to address how those of us who love people who struggle can help them during the holiday season. And to do this, I have brought back a friend of mine, Brad J. Neufeld, and Brad has over 30 years of experience working with people who struggle. He is the president and owner of Affinity Guidance Services and has mentored youth and adults through many, many challenging things. Brad has also experienced depression in his own personal life. And so he kind of has been able to approach this from both the viewpoint of one who mentors people and also the viewpoint of one who has experienced it. And so I thought it would be good to bring Brad on and talk a little bit about some of the questions that you have during this holiday season. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Well, no, thank you very much. This is fun. Well, now that you've said all this, you've lined it up to be dark and dismal. Well, no, I'm just kidding. But thank you for having me on. I love helping people, as you know, and so thank you. Thank you for thinking of me.
Well, I just had this thought the other day, and I thought, you know what? We need to address this because this is about bringing hope to people's lives.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so I thought it would be especially helpful since you were someone who has seen both ends of it. You know, you've both you've experienced depression in your life, and you know what it's like to feel alone at Christmas time or during the holiday season, and also share how your life has changed since then. So why don't we maybe take it back a little bit and share some of your teenage years when you did feel very alone at Christmas time and how that has changed.
You know, as I was mentioning to you prior to the show, when we're talking about the loneliness, those people who feel alone during the Christmas holiday seasons, those of you who know me, I've been supporting myself since I was 13 years old, and I got back temporarily with my family a little bit in January of 1980. But it was 6 months later when my parents had to move out again and move from Utah to California, and I stayed here in Utah. 16 years of age, but I ended up, because of our money challenges and stuff like that, I ended up staying by myself at 16 years old. And I thought, you know, it was just a thing that my parents and I agreed to, and we agreed to talk on the phone and whatnot. But still, it was lonely. It was like, you know, when you're so used to having family there and presence and seeing people happy and everything, and that's not there, and I'm just watching, you know, parades on TV and football games and everything. It just wasn't the same. And so I made it through that one okay, but then the next year the same thing happened, and that was even harder. And perhaps the hardest one was when I was 18 and there was nobody there, and so I was scarred for the holidays. I'm not going to lie. And I dreaded it every day, every time it would get closer to the holidays and everybody's all in the cheer. And we talk about who's that guy, the Grinch or whatever. I wasn't necessarily that, but it was just, you know, this isn't what you guys think it is. And I had my own attitudes and things for it, but it wasn't until later on, my beautiful wife, who loves holidays, she loves them all, and she celebrates every one of them. And Christmas is one of the big ones. And I told her up front that I was have trouble with these things. I said, I'll support you in what it is that you want, but don't expect anything, you know, let me just handle it my own way, kind of a thing. And my wife said, well, I'm not going to marry you unless you promise me you're going to get me a fresh tree every year. And I'm like, that's too much work. I like the Charlie Brown tree, cut off the top and post it on the top of the counter. I'm good enough there. But that's been something that I agreed to, and I've done every year for 33 years now. And so, we do the fresh Christmas tree, but it took me years, Tamara, to overcome that, to where I finally opened up the holiday spirit, if you want to call it. And it took me literally until, I don't know how many years ago it was, 15 years ago, when we were going into a Christmas with some really hard financial times and weren't able to really buy anything for our kids. And I was just like, I'm right back to Christmas is no good. I'm so done. I don't want my kids to experience what I experienced. But the members of my community somehow sensed that we were going through what we were going through. And we woke up Christmas morning to bags and bags of presents outside of our door.
Really?
Yes. And also gifts of money, gifts of everything else. And it was all from Anonymous and all of this. And, I broke down, cried. I'm not going to lie. And it just really humbled me that day. And that's when I realized this is what Christmas is all about, is others thinking of you. And, I'm sure other people were thinking of me during those other times too, but it was just something that I was saying, I don't want to be, I want everybody to stay away. I guess I wanted to be in my own little pit there. But the thoughts of suicide came quite frequently early on in my life because of during the holidays. And so I know depression is something that comes around people who have depression, it gets magnified.
Sure.
Every holiday season. The holiday season brings out so many emotions. And all from, anyway, we can get into some more specifics, but as far as the emotions go, I know fights happen during that time. I mean, it's like surviving Christmas is the way we start looking at it, and making the best of it.
So what would you say were, obviously this instance 15 years ago was monumental, and maybe breaking down a little bit of the wall you built kind of around your heart as far as Christmas goes. What else do you recommend for people who specifically struggle with depression?
Well, because of the taking all of the positive emotions out of it at an early age, I literally looked at it as it's just a commercial thing that people had put together to try to sell stuff. I mean, that's just the way I was looking at it. And so I was kind of mad at the society. I was mad at the world. I was mad at everything for creating it, I guess. And I had no reason to feel that way. That was just kind of what would come up all the time. And this thing about what happened 15 years ago, it was a slow and steady thing that happened, because it went from, we were doing really well at times, and then we'd buy our kids Christmas and we'd get to see the happy faces, and my wife would, look how happy they are, honey. And I'm going, okay, this is good. They're experiencing stuff that I didn't get to. And so I just kind of went along those lines to help myself feel better. But the thing about this was I still had a little bit of that residue of nobody cares. They're just doing this as, again, a way to make money and stuff like that. And it's all just hype. But the fact that this happened let me know that, no, there's a God up there who's looking over us. There's neighbors do care. And then after that, it, again, opened my eyes to the fact of people do care. And now I started seeing that versus seeing nobody cared, if that makes sense. Because it's like, we have to, I just go back to Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, You'll Believe It When You, or You'll See It When You Believe It is the name, is the title of the book. And so I was believing that Christmas was no good. And so therefore I was seeing all the negative in Christmas, but that turned me to see, oh, there is positive. And then I started looking for the positive, and I'm like, holy cow, there's a lot of giving. There's a lot of good-hearted people out there. And I would venture to say 90% of the people out there are good, and they want to give and they want to help. And even when people don't have the means to, they figure out a way to give. And that's how I saw this, was that it was like, okay, people really do care. And I see it all the time now. So that was the biggest thing, is the recognizing that there is a lot of good going on.
That's amazing. So it really boiled down to a shift in your perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and seeing the good and letting God maybe crack that barrier around your heart a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So now I actually look forward to Christmas. But I also say this too. Everybody asks me, "Are you ready for Christmas?" And this is my little tagline. I say, "There is no ready. You just do it and enjoy what you can from it." So
there you go. That is very wise. I'm thankful you're able to share that. Now, one of my listeners wrote in and wrote about a challenge with people's expectations of how everyone should celebrate Christmas.
yes.
And different people celebrate differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would you say about that? Because different people, maybe some people don't believe in Santa Claus and they share in different ways. Maybe some people don't celebrate Christmas at all. They celebrate Hanukkah or something like that. So what advice would you share with people who are struggling because they feel judged?
Yeah. Well, and let's take it both from the giver's perspective and from the taker's perspective.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Because from the giver's perspective, again, it should just matter that we're doing the good and that we're helping mankind. It shouldn't matter what their beliefs are. But unfortunately, we're living in this world now where there's been traditions, there's been things occur for hundreds of years, and people tend to take these traditions as I want to make sure I'm clear on this. They put it in a category many times of right and wrong. The right thing to do is to have your lights up, right after right after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And the right thing to do is put little Santa Claus statues out in your yard. The right thing to do, and it's like, no, there's no right or wrong here. However a person chooses to celebrate Christmas, that's their own doing.
Right.
Now, there might be various reasons because, I know this is a fight I have every year with my wife. I hate putting up the lights. And I'd just as soon put them up and leave them up all year round. and I love all these inventions out there that you can now change the colors for the season. So leave the lights up, dang it. But
I know. I like that invention too.
But that's still something I haven't gotten in the habit of loving. But anyway, and so from the giver's perspective, don't think you know what's going on in a person's life. They might be going through some hard times if they don't put the lights up. Mm-hmm. But is that your responsibility to go and ask them? Not necessarily, but it doesn't hurt to, as a neighbor, hey, we're just around seeing if any of our neighbors want anything or need anything for Christmas, and is there anything we can do to help? So it wouldn't hurt to just do that. But if they don't want to do those things or participate in the traditional things, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. Now, from the taker's eyes, that's a whole different perspective, because you'll need to look at this as people might not give you what you're expecting. Okay. And again, be okay with what they give and look at it as an act of giving versus the thing that you get. Because I know this causes a lot of grief throughout the holiday season. This was another reason why I had a hard time with it, because I would see people get into fights and lifelong separations over Christmas, that one person spent $100 on somebody and the other person just got them a card.
Right.
And so there was this, well, God, we spent all this money on this part of the family and all we got for it was a stupid card. Well, maybe that's all they were able to give. And so, so the taker, take the responsibility and just say thank you for no matter what it is that a person gives, even if it's just a smile, even if it's just a Merry Christmas, take it and say thank you and be okay with it. Have no expectations is the big thing, because the more expectations you have, the more you're setting yourself up to be hurt. Okay. Now, let me just cross this boundary with the depression point, with the depressed person. They will have expectations that they won't voice. And that's where the danger comes in, because they'll be expecting certain things from other people. And again, because other people can't read their mind, they don't always give them what they're expecting.
So is it a good practice then, if you know someone who's struggling, to say, what are you expecting this Christmas or this holiday season?
And that's actually a great question to ask, Tamara. Be sure and do that, but do it way in advance. Don't wait until 2 days before Christmas, because by then all the feelings are already set in and the expectations are set in. And if it's somebody that you know is going through it and they voice that to you, now's the time to talk about it. Get a strategy together and say, hey, I understand this is coming up. What can I do to help make your holiday season the very best that it can be? And that can be brothers and sisters, siblings, parents, whoever you're talking to, or even your kids. Take the time to do that now and get it established. And then do what you can to make that come to pass. If they say, and take them at their word, if they say, I just want everybody to leave me alone. That's a big one. And it's like, okay, I'm choosing not to listen to you on that one. Because what that depressed person is actually saying is, I want to have attention without having to ask for it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Cause I've been there. I was actually thinking about going on and getting my doctorate degree, and well, I don't want to give my secret away because then I might spoil it. But anyway, I look at depression a lot differently than most people do. Yes, it is a chemical imbalance in the brain, but it's also an addiction to attention in many ways. If let that settle for a minute, because you're looking for attention that you're not getting. And you could be setting yourself up all day long for letdowns, because you'll think, oh, if this person would just reach out and talk to me, I'd feel good today. Well, that person reaches out and talks to them. Well, I feel good. But then the next day they didn't reach out and talk to me. So now what happens? I'm down in the dumps. I'm down in the dumps. But that person that's giving me this attention doesn't even know that I'm expecting that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And so that's why do your best without forcing or without pushing to find out what those needs are, and encourage the person to be open with me. I'm going to keep your confidence, but please be open with me and tell me what it is that you need. And a lot of times the depressed person won't know at that moment, but that gets them thinking, okay, what is it do I need? And eventually they'll tell you. That's why it's important to do it way ahead of time. So if you're listening to this today, go to those people right now and start talking to them.
So ask them, and then if they don't know, say, can I give you a few days to think about it, and then follow up? Yeah,
think about it for a few days. Write down your thoughts, and then let's talk about it in a couple of days. I wish somebody would have done that to me early on. I really do, but I know that I do that with people, and it's amazing. They come up with it. And for the person who has the depression that's listening to this, ask for help. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And
what would you recommend that they say? Because maybe they're sitting here thinking, just being overwhelmed at the thought of approaching somebody. What would you recommend? Like, can you talk me through a scenario of what that would look like?
So the person who has the depression?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because usually what they'll do is they'll drop big hints of things, and people won't really recognize what the hints are. And yes, if you're depressed, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But the thing is, do your best to tell people what it is that you need. Again, if nobody's asking you to do this, asking this of you, ask it of yourself. What do I need in order to get through and make this Christmas the best I can make it? And those ideas will come to you. Those thoughts will come to you, and put them down. And don't be afraid to share those with the people who you're closest with. You've got to take some action there in order to overcome it. But to me, that's one of the first steps, is recognizing what it is that your needs are that aren't being met, and figuring out a way to get those needs met. So
that's great. So maybe just approaching a loved one and saying, hey, I was thinking about Christmas and how sometimes I struggle. And I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to, and then fill in the blank.
And fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. And that would be really helpful if we did something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just approaching it like that.
Just approaching it like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you'll be surprised how many people will help. Because another trait of the depressive mind is, I already know what that person's going to say. Well, I'm telling you right now, you don't know what that person's going to say.
Right.
Let me bust that myth for you. Okay, that was the biggest thing I learned in I'll call it a recovery. That was the biggest thing I've learned, is I can't read people's minds.
Right.
And that's where I came up with this 90+% of people are good and want to help, because that's where when I finally started asking for help, when I overcame that pride, if you want to call it, when I overcame that and started telling people, well, here's my needs, and this is, please help me with this. It's amazing the love that was shown towards me that would help me through those situations. So
that's awesome. Fantastic. So, Brad, another situation came up where people, maybe they're struggling because they're in a new type of situation. Perhaps, they've just been through a divorce, and so Christmas is going to look different. Maybe they had a death in the family. Maybe they got fired from their job, and so for some reason, the holiday season is different this year. Maybe they're kids, maybe they're empty nesters. I don't know. The holiday season looks different than it has in past years.
Yes.
What is some advice you would give to people who are struggling for those reasons?
Okay, well, let me put this out there because there are so many unique situations which require unique techniques or unique strategies in order to conquer. But let me just say this up front. What I'm about to say is just going to be general. And matter of fact, I'll even go so far as why don't you leave my phone number in your podcast here, if somebody wants to call me and I can help them with their a specific situation, I'll do that free of charge because that's what I like to do. But as far as that, again, take the same advice that I said for the last thing. Start planning for it ahead of time. Don't wait until you get knee deep into the holidays and then try to figure it out. Think right now, okay, who are those people in my life that are going to cause me stress? What situations cause me stress? I think one of the things that you had said is somebody doesn't quite celebrate Christmas the way that other people do. They don't like the lights. They don't like the Santa Claus and thing. And we're back to that right and wrong thing. It doesn't matter. Okay. If a person chooses to not have the Santa Claus thing in their life, because again, some people look at that as a lie. Other people look at it as just a way to keep imagination going. And they're both right. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So again, from the giver's side, just have respect for how the people want to celebrate those Christmases, and don't allow yourself to get irritated by it. It's not fair for you to get irritated by it. Let them have their time. But from the person who has the we'll say the taker's side, the person who has the different belief systems and stuff like that, it's okay to come up with your own little mantra. Matter of fact, I liked one of the ones that you had said. Have your pre-planned thing that you're going to say and say it to everybody so that it's consistent. So if somebody comes to you, I see you don't have lights up. Why don't you have lights? You don't like Christmas? I'm trying to find a way to simplify.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
And just say that over and over to whoever it is. Again, you can either, choose to get into a battle about it and try to convince them of your beliefs. But if you want things to just be peaceful, just come up with that one little simple thing that's going to stop the conversation right there dead in its tracks, and it's over. We're just trying to simplify. Well, how do you simplify from taking out lights? Hey, it's a lot less work and a lot less money. And that's all we're trying to do. It's all good.
I'm sitting here going, gosh, I think I'd like to simplify this year.
Exactly. Well, sometimes we feel a need to defend our belief systems. And again, I completely understand why. If you're passionate about something, you want other people to know that you are, and maybe you want them to change their belief systems too. But understand, again, back to the right and wrong thing, is some things you don't put these type of things in a category of right and wrong, because they're not. If they want to celebrate Hanukkah and Jewish family or whatever, let them. Okay, and just see the good in people, and that's another thing too. Find the commonality, and what is the common thing during the holiday season is giving. Okay, just focus on the giving.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter again how they run their Christmas or holiday season. Doesn't matter. Just focus on the giving.
I love that. Focus on the commonality. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you have a situation perhaps where, I don't know, a spouse or a child or someone you love that's close to you has passed away, how do you deal with the holidays then, because you're missing them?
Yes. And this is a strategy that I've coached people on many times. And I have to say up front, I'm fortunate that hasn't happened where I've had someone pass away during the holiday seasons. And so, but we did have a situation where my father-in-law was pretty much on his deathbed, and we chose to keep him on life support, and he ended up living past the Christmas holidays. And so, but again, very tragic event that our family went through. But what I coach people on doing is, again, prepare ahead of time, plan, and think of all of the good things that person brought to your life. Think of all the good things that they did. In fact, pick something each day to focus on each day, that you're going to focus on that specific positive thing that person did or said, or a way that they've changed your life, or that they've been an inspiration in your life. And if you take and people who have done this, who have taken this advice and actually done it afterwards, go, you know what, Christmas ended up being exactly what it should have been, because we were focused on, again, the giving and the positive things about this time of the year, versus the fact that this death came to us and we're just trying to cope with it. So
That's actually a really good idea. Almost like maybe a countdown to Christmas, for example, instead of doing a 25-day countdown in some other way, maybe it's 25 things. You list one a day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That I'm thankful. I remember that time when, and maybe it's a memory, or I'm thankful that this person was always so kind and helpful. So maybe just listing something that, and so that way they're a part of the holiday with you,
exactly,
even though they're not
so
there.
You feel the spirit of them while you're there,
yeah,
even though they're not there physically. And I've had some people come give me some really cool feedback on that, and say it was as if they were sitting right beside us, during our Christmas dinner, or while we were sitting around the tree and things like that. So there's been some really neat spiritual experiences from practicing that.
That's neat. And I can see that being the case. And so maybe not being afraid to talk about them.
Right.
Bring it up, talk about them, let them participate in that first Christmas without them, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. That's
but again,
beautiful.
Focus on the positive.
Focus on the positive. That is awesome. I had a friend approach me, and she was telling me about what her holiday situation is looking like and how she's feeling so discouraged. And so I thought we'd maybe talk a little bit about some of this. She is a divorced mother, and her children are grown, and they live in all different places. And what used to be her favorite part of Christmas was her Christmas Eve get together with all her kids, but all of them don't get along anymore. And so, there's that struggle, but Christmas just doesn't look like it used to. They can't all come over on Christmas Eve anymore. And so she's just feeling very, very discouraged about looking at the holiday season, because it's not the same as it used to be. And a lot of people struggle with that. Christmas isn't the same as it was before. And so what advice do you give to people in that situation?
Well, first of all, becoming the empty nester. There's even a syndrome named after it. It's called the empty nester syndrome.
Yes.
And so that's something that obviously we're all going to experience as parents. And depending on your religious beliefs, I mean, it's truly a part of our development, helping us to enjoy what we have when we have it, and then be willing to let go and share with others, so to speak. And so the main thing is I don't want to necessarily call it advice, but let me give you a scenario of what happened with my wife and I, because it was devastating. Of course, it's like we have 6 kids, but the oldest 4 were all very close together. And literally within 1 year, all of them either got married or went to school or whatever. And we went from 6 kids to 2 overnight. And that was devastating, because my wife kept making enough meals for 8. And then, and she's like, why aren't you guys eating? You're not eating as much as you used to. Honey, there's only 4 people here now instead of 8, There's not as many mouths to feed here. And it was very traumatic for my wife, and I was there, to encourage her. And I says, well, we gotta look at this and look at the beauty of our kids growing up and being able to be responsible and go on out on their own and start their own families and everything. And so, but the main thing on how to deal with it is you got to stay busy, because I mean, look at it this way: your kids have been your focus for all these years, for 20 plus years, however long they're in there, and that gave your life meaning. I mean, it gave you something to work towards, and you put a lot of thought and effort and prayer into raising those kids, and then all of a sudden that task or that responsibility seems like it's taken from you. So of course it makes sense that you would now feel like, well, my life is devoid of any
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, or not responsibility of well, this particular one, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so now our brain kind of plays with us as I have nothing to bring value into my life. And if you look at it on a cognitive level, that's usually what it is. I feel like I have no value now. Well, how do you change that, and how do you work with it? Well, the key is to stay in contact with your kids, and also with other family members. Find a new focus, because in many ways, I just like to say this: you knew this was going to happen when you had kids, and I mean, even on some levels, you probably wished for it. You know? Can't wait until you guys are all 18. I'm going to kick you all out of the house. So
Right?
So you just got what you asked for. No, I don't want to make it that.
No,
that
no.
But does that make sense? I mean, it literally is just to sit down and talk and ask yourself, okay, now I have this extra time. I have done a great job with my kids. Let me feel that joy in knowing that I have done that. Now, what can I do to bring that meaning or that purpose back into my life? Now you have more time. That could be with other family members, helping them to deal with their challenges that they're faced with. It could be neighbors, people in your religious organizations and whatnot. Turn your focus to that, and you'll start to feel that come back, that feeling of purpose. And definitely stay close to loved ones at all time during because as we've been discussing all along throughout this podcast here, this time of year is always brings up these feelings on some levels. And so, but stay close to your loved ones. Don't if you find yourself wanting to be alone, don't.
Right.
Go out and don't sit here and think, well, I'm bothering everybody. I know that a lot of people have that. I'm bothering people and I don't want to feel like I'm a bother. You're not. Okay. Guess what? They're sitting in their home thinking the same thing. So, so be the one to take the initial step and reach out to your kids and that. So
maybe make new traditions then. Approach your
make new traditions
and say, hey, here's how I'm feeling. How would you feel if I came and stayed with you this holiday season, and maybe the next holiday season, and keep making memories, but just be open to be flexible enough to.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of the things that we did to deal with our empty nester syndrome here, is we decided to have start to ask the kids way ahead of time, like in the summertime. Okay, December's coming up. Do you guys have any time off? And kind of get a feel for when we can all get together. And it's usually 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. Like last year, we had it during the break in between Christmas and New Year's. But we all get together and we go out to dinner. And we have this favorite restaurant that we like. And so that's kind of our get together. And we love it. And then afterwards we have ice cream and we go to our house and watch movies and everything like that. So that's our celebration. And then that way, we made the time for us all to get together, because obviously when your kids get married, they've got in-laws now, and then they're going to be wanting to go to their houses and stuff like that. So now it's a matter of sharing. And so this year, what we're doing is we're going, as you said, to visit one of our kids, and we're just going to take turns and make a rotation. Matter of fact, we're going to see our daughter in Arizona for Thanksgiving, and then we're going to see our son and daughter-in-law in Cedar City during Christmas. And so next year we'll change it up.
Yeah. So just be flexible enough to make those new adjustments, I guess you would say. And maybe even pray about it. Ask God to help you figure it out.
Yeah, where's the best place I could go this season? Where could I do the most good? Who could I be with to help me through these challenges that I'm going through? And don't be afraid to talk, to vent if you need to, to a close friend or whatever. Let those feelings out.
Yeah.
It always helps.
Yeah, that's awesome. One follow-up question with that. What about family members who don't get along?
Okay. Yeah, that is something definitely, it's always, believe it or not, during the holiday season may be a good time to do that. but it's something that by all means, do not force it. Don't sit there and, tell your kids, you've got to get this figured out this year. No, just go to them individually and say, you know what? And don't be afraid to do this, Mom. Moms like to, go ahead and guilt your kids. Okay. Well, I like to say it this way: plant the seed. Go ahead and plant a seed. And the best thing I could do for Christmas is to have you work on your relationship with your brother or sister, and just leave it at that. But things come in time. It's okay. But I would just ask that you reach out to them and see if you can, overcome that challenge you're going through. Christmas season, actually, a lot of people do. You've seen a lot of movies where that happens, and it's actually true.
Yeah.
So this time of year can also be good for bringing those things together. But again, don't force it. If the person says, "I'm just not ready to do that," just honor that. Just say, "Okay, well, when you're ready, just do it." And it doesn't hurt to revisit it every 3 to 6 months. And hey, how you doing there? And just talk to each side individually and just see where they're. You could be the bridge to helping to heal that too. And so, but sibling rivalries will always be there.
Yes, they will, won't they? They're as old as the Bible itself, right?
I know. I was telling you before the show, my family's been blessed. When we get together for those, the whole family get together and go to dinner. Yeah, it's expensive to, now we've gone from, having 6 kids to now having, well, if you count the
in-laws.
The in-laws and all that, add 4 there, and now we got 7 grandkids, and so the table kind of grows. But yeah, it's expensive. But I sit there and just relish the moment watching all my kids talk and go back and forth and share their stories when they were growing up and what they used to do. It just brings so much joy to my heart. That's my time of year. I tell my wife I'm selfish. I need that every year. So like they'll say, well, it's expensive. I don't care. I need it. It's a need.
It's a therapy thing
it
for
is.
you.
Yeah, I either spend the money on the restaurant or on therapy, whichever. I choose the restaurant.
Oh, you're so funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, would you mind talking to us maybe about some general guidelines for helping people in their holiday season and getting through it more easily?
Okay.
How many of you out there feel like your life is chaotic, crazy, and completely awful compared to the norm? What if I were to tell you that you are normal for you? I am so excited to announce that my book, Normal for Me by Tamara K. Anderson, is now available for purchase on Amazon. This book took me 10 years to write, and I share 20 years worth of lessons learned in my life detours, including being in a car accident and having 2 of my children diagnosed on the autism spectrum. In this book, I share the secrets of how I made it from despair to peace with God's help. I also include a bonus diagnosis survival guide at the very end of my Normal for Me book. The Diagnosis Survival Guide includes 12 tips to survive and thrive in tough times. Wouldn't you like to know what those are? So what are you waiting for? Grab your copy of Normal for Me today on Amazon.
And we're back. Today, I am speaking with my friend Brad J. Neufeld about the holiday blues and how to get through them with cheer. How's that?
No more holiday blues.
No more holiday blues. I wish, right?
Right.
But so we're talking about this, and one of the things we talked about during the break was the importance of not attacking others' beliefs.
Yeah, be careful about that, because when you attack somebody else's beliefs, that automatically causes contention, and most of the time they'll hold on to that. Some people have the skills to let things like that go, but most people don't. And so,
right.
And if you're after to have a peaceful and fun-loving holiday season, don't attack them for their beliefs. Just accept it and move on. So.
And I think also if you have somebody that tends to be a little contentious, I think maybe praying for them is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Just praying.
Well, and pray for who you can help, too.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Who in my neighborhood or who in my family unit needs me this holiday season, and follow the promptings you get.
That's a really good idea, because often we approach the holidays and we're so focused on the gifts that perhaps we're not thinking of the most important gifts, which are maybe the gift of time, the gift of listening to someone, especially if they're struggling.
Yes.
You know, these are the gifts that probably mean the most to people, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because again, money's not it. A lot of people think that, well, let me buy more expensive presents and then that'll make the person happy. Again, that's so not not what a person needs during the holidays. A lot of it's the camaraderie, it's the love, it's the connection that people really need. Matter of fact, if I can, let me just share a story here really quick, because I back to that, because again, I use these techniques that I'm telling everybody here, because there was a time where my wife has a big family, and if my family's listening to this, hear the love in what I'm saying. I know you all love me and I love you too. But I did go through a spell where it was like, why go to these family parties? Because when they got together, basically the siblings, including, my wife and her siblings, would get together, and the party was more for them, and the in-laws were all kind of left out and everything. But I just noticed that not any, people wouldn't necessarily come to me and talk. And when I was going through some depression early on, that hurt, that nobody would want to come to me. And so therefore I didn't want to go to the parties. And so you may hear that from people who are suffering from depression, that they don't want to be around big groups. Well, again, ask them, okay, this party would probably do you some good, but again, what would you need in order for that, for this party here to, what would you need to see happen in order for you to make this party a good thing? And so I did that with my wife and talked to her a little bit, and she started to see, okay, I see what's happening here. And I asked her, is there something you could do for me? If you would at least do this, when we're eating, will you come and sit down by me? Because up to that point, she wasn't. She was just going and sitting with whoever she wanted to talk to at the time. And again, I want her to have the experience of being with her family, but she was concerned with me. And so I just asked her that, will you come and sit by me when you're eating? And that should make everything perfect. And it has been ever since. And that's what we've been doing. That's our understanding. And so by me voicing it, what my needs were, everything works out.
Yeah.
Now I don't have that. Now I go and enjoy and have fun and take part of the camaraderie, but my need was met.
Right. So asking that question, what would it take for you to feel comfortable there?
Right.
And seeing what that scene looks like in their mind.
Yeah,
because it's going to look different for everybody, right? Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to role play either.
Yeah. So practice for people that maybe feel a little socially awkward at gatherings. Maybe prepare a list of questions you can ask people,
Right.
Maybe your list of questions includes what's your favorite holiday memory, or, stuff like that. Of course, if they struggle with depression, that might not be a good.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a favorite holiday memory.
Yeah, they may be starting where I was. And so, yeah, exactly.
But having a list of ideas or questions or scenarios that you could influence, because I think a lot of times when we enter scenarios like that, we feel powerless to change.
Yes.
And so just brainstorming sometimes with a loved one for what would make that successful, what would that look like, and just starting to envision, well, if this happened, if I had somebody sit down and eat with me, if somebody played a game with me, like my family's big on playing games,
my family too.
Get the card games out, everybody sits around the table, we play games together, and that's just what we do. Right. And so what does that look like? Maybe they bring a pack of cards in their pocket and they come prepared. Hey, can I teach you a quick game?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Start playing solitaire on the table, and somebody will come over and say, "Hey, let's play, Texas Hold'em or something." I don't know.
Exactly. So brainstorm solutions with a loved one, perhaps, to make the scenario more comfortable, more doable, not so intimidating, perhaps.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, especially coming from, being the parent of special needs kiddos, we often have to brainstorm what a holiday situation is going to look like for us, especially since change is difficult for kids on the autism spectrum. And so, that's just an idea of when you have a special situation, brainstorming, how can I make this possible?
Right.
For me, it's okay if I bring the iPad with me,
Yeah.
that will help him stay entertained so that I can interact with other people. But sometimes that doesn't work. So, you know.
Well, and maybe even take an extra step and say, okay, son or daughter, you're going to be in this situation here. We're going to bring the iPad, but what shows do you want to watch? What games do you want to play in order to keep you
happy and content?
So instead of going there and just handing the iPad and having them figure out something and get discouraged because they can't meet their need at that moment, maybe ask it now ahead of time. So get a little more precise.
Yeah, even break it down even farther. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yep.
Now, we were going to talk about some general guidelines for people who both struggle and people who want to help people who struggle.
Right.
What would you say is one of the first things?
Okay, again, if you're the person struggling, communication is everything. And trust me, I want you to know that I've been there, okay? I know what it's like when you're sitting there and people are giving you all this advice of, hey, if you just get up in the morning and go to the gym, or you'd go for a brisk walk in the morning, you'll feel better. I know the daggers that are that are hitting you when people are saying that, and how hard it is to even think. So trust me, I know what depression is. I've been there. But I also know this: unless you start taking small actions, nothing's ever going to change. Okay. Yes. And if you're suffering from depression, please seek professional help. I've had to be on all of the medications and all that too. Here I am years later, I've been able to get rid of it all, but it's only been working closely with my doctors and stuff like that to be able to do that. That being said, I do know that one of the biggest things to change your status and where you're at is to take different actions than what you've been doing up to that point. So if you look at it as, what I've been doing up to this point has led me to here, I need to do something different, and you need to try new things. Okay. And so it's a matter of, yes, go to that family party. But if you need protections, even if you just go and sit out in the car, I mean, you'd be surprised how much of a change that would work. So if you're not feeling up to being around the big crowd, at least go, okay? Go sit out on the porch. And if you need to have somebody who's close to you, give everybody else a warning. Okay, Jim's here because, it took him a lot to get here, but just please let him be, but he's here. So you've taken some action, if that makes sense. And so take a responsibility there. And again, I know what I'm asking of you, but I also know that nothing's going to change until you start doing that. You gotta do some
baby steps, right?
Very much. That's what it took me to heal myself, is the baby steps.
Yeah.
Not do more than I can, because again, been there, fear of failure. You think, oh, if I go and do this, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to feel even worse afterwards. Again, I've been there. But if you go into it with an attitude of, hey, I want to go learn something today. So if you tell yourself that, yes, I'll go to the party and I want to learn something new by going there, instead of looking at it as doom and gloom. If this happens to me, then I'm going to be further in. No, I'm just going to go and learn. That's all. No expectations. And you'll be surprised how the healing process will start right away. And then go ahead.
No, so it's important to be brave enough to take those baby steps.
Yes.
And say, okay, I'm going to go to the family party this year, but perhaps I will sit on the front porch. Or perhaps if I get so overwhelmed, I'm going to tell my sibling,
I'll go sit out in the car.
I'm going to go sit in the car, or I'm going to go, maybe there's a corner of the house where it's more quiet.
Quiet, yep.
And just have a plan. Say, I will go there.
Or if you need a distraction, the iPad or whatever.
Or bring a book.
Bring a book.
Yeah, something so that you have a plan in place, so that when you start feeling overwhelmed, you have a place to withdraw to. You have a plan in place. So plan for a new step, but also plan for, if you feel overwhelmed, these are the backup steps that I have in place. So it's not, you feel like you're in control, and you do have.
Yeah, exactly. And even give yourself an out. Talk to your friend or family member there and say, if it gets too overwhelming, will you bring me home? Yes, but at least you've taken the step, and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up and say, I didn't stay the whole family party. No, look at the positive. I got up out of my bed. I went, I stayed there for half an hour, and I learned this.
Good.
So
yeah.
If you just get in the habit of that, it's amazing how quickly you can start healing.
That's awesome.
And so, but
No,
as far as for
communication, so that's the first one, and having a plan.
yes. And on the other side, where you're looking at somebody who's and the telltale signs are definitely when you start to see people distancing themselves right off the bat with Christmas coming up, and you can read the body language. And of course, mothers, you know your kids, you'll have that motherly sense there, and follow it. If you're feeling like there might be some issues coming up this Christmas, follow it. Take the time to take your son or daughter out to eat. Take them someplace where they can relax a little bit, and then just say, hey, I just have a feeling that you're going to be struggling this Christmas. And what can we do to make this? See, I know I'm saying it's repetitious, this question I'm asking, but guess what? It works. Okay. What can we do so that this isn't such a stressful time for you, and that you can get the things that you need from this Christmas? What do you need? And of course, if it's a child, normally they'll fight you on nothing. I don't need anything. Everything's fine. Okay, well, obviously it's not. But do you want to take a couple of days and think about it? I'm just wanting to make this the best Christmas for you that I possibly can. And you might have some resistance up front, but after you separate and the person who has the depression thinks about it a little bit, okay, here's somebody trying to reach out to me. Let me take advantage of this. And they will. Just give them the space.
So if you don't get an initial response, then say...
Yeah, don't get mad. Don't get mad.
Just follow up. Say, would you mind thinking about it?
Yeah, just think about it.
And can I follow up with you in a couple of days or in a week?
Yep.
And can we talk about it again?
Yeah, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And usually
then you need to follow up.
Then you need to follow. Yeah, and if you don't, let me just tell you what's going on in the depressed person's mind. They're looking forward to that talk. Even though they're having the resistance up front, they're looking forward to that next talk. And if it's not there, it hurts. It hurts.
So it's important, if you offer it, to follow through. Absolutely.
And I'm so glad we hit on that. So
yeah, no, I'm glad we did too. That's fantastic.
Yeah, put it in your calendar. Tell Siri to give you 17 alarms. Make sure you follow up.
That is awesome and amazing. Well, this has been just so incredible. I think I'd like to just close it all off with kind of where we started in the beginning, and you going back to your story and you learning that this holiday season is a spirit of giving.
Yes.
My audience, I speak specifically to Christian families. So I want you to remember that Jesus Christ is the reason for the season.
Absolutely.
And in your busyness, don't forget the whole reason. And if you feel you need to simplify, think about it, pray about it, figure out what is right for you. If you're struggling with the situation, involve God in that and involve your family members. I love that we've talked about communication and the importance of listening. And so don't let the busyness of the holiday season deprive you of relationships with the people you care the most about.
As a matter of fact, let go of some of the busyness and take the time to do this, because I know people get overwhelmed with Christmas. Oh, there's so much to do. And again, my thing is there's no ready. You just do it. You just do it and do the best that you can. So
Right. So do your best and celebrate those little baby steps if you're working through depression, right?
Right.
Celebrate your baby steps, look for the positives. And that's great advice.
Please don't go through the holidays without asking for help. But anyway, I'm here to help any way that I possibly can. But my number is area code 435-830-6945. Once again, 435-830-6945. And be sure and leave a message. I know a lot of people don't like to leave messages, but please leave me a message if you get my voicemail. Or you can email me at info@bradjneufeld.com. That's info@bradjneufeld, NEUFELD.com. So
thank you, Brad.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. We'll for sure put all that information in the show notes for today's show. Thanks for sharing your story and for giving us hope that the holidays can be a little better.
And they can, and they will.
And they will. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's show. I know that there are many of you out there that are going through a hard time, and I hope you found things that have been useful today as you listen to the podcast.
If you would like to access the show notes from today's podcast, visit my website. It is storiesofhopepodcast.com. That is where you'll find favorite quotes from today's episode and shareable memes. And those are fun because you can share them with your friends on social media. You will also find the links mentioned throughout today's episode, so you don't have to remember what those were. And also all the tips that were shared. Sometimes tips are shared so much throughout an episode you forget. What were those great things? So go to the show notes, storiesofhopepodcast.com, to look up these fantastic resources. You know, if someone kept coming to mind during today's episode, perhaps that means that you should share this with them. Maybe there was a story shared or a tip that they really, really need to hear. So go ahead and share this episode with them.
May God bless you, especially if you are struggling, with hope to carry on and with the strength to keep going when things get tough. Remember to walk with Christ, and He will help bear that burden. Above all else, remember, God loves you.